in your SBIR, your prior SBIR contracts. But now we want to talk about positioning, better positioning for SBIR funds or non-SBIR funds and some of those key differences. First of all, you've got to know the customer. So if you've ever worked with us on a proposal, on an SBIR proposal, one of the first things we ask is, have you talked to the TPOC? And if you haven't, you need to talk to the TPOC. It's extremely important for SBIRs. For non-SBIRs, it's even more critical. In fact, it's virtually paramount to have already known the technical points of contact prior to the RFP coming out. So one of the things we encourage are, don't just look for RFPs that are out, but look for the RFIs, look for the industry days, look for the sources sought opportunities, and utilize those to get in front of the customer well ahead of the RFP coming out. That way you get to understand their technical needs quite a bit better. They understand your technology and the capabilities better, and that just puts you in a much better position to address the RFP once it's published. Staying informed. So one of the things about that make SBIRs convenient is there's a fixed schedule. When the topics are going to come out. You generally know what the proposal requirements are. There's funding already allocated for it. So there's a lot of things that make SBIR convenient, even though they are very competitive. On the non-SBIR side of the house, it's the opposite. The landscape is always changing, and we're in this business every day, and have been in this business now for 20 years, 21 years. And there are constantly new programs coming out, new opportunities coming out. In fact, just in preparation for this presentation, we stumbled upon a couple of things we hadn't heard about before. So the landscape is always changing, so you always have to be out there looking for those new opportunities. Again, and there's no fixed schedule; they just come out sometimes randomly. But if you have a relationship with a customer, you'll oftentimes be aware of opportunities coming out before they hit the street. Each RFP has unique requirements, so it's the SBIRs are generally the same from year to year, but each RFP will often have its own specific proposal requirements, submission schedules, merit review criteria, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of detail there to pay attention to. And finally, program management. So the larger the larger non-SBIR contracts will often have a much more rigorous requirement for project management, both in terms of course, deliverable schedules, things like that, but spend rates, they watch your spend plan pretty closely. You don't want to spend too fast, but you also don't want to spend too slowly. That indicates that you might be underperforming or underutilizing funds, and so they watch all of that very closely. Contractual deliverables are very serious about that. Again, it's not like an SBIR contract, and it's certainly not like an SBIR grant, where it's a lot more open-ended. They're very serious about their deliverables and performing according to the specification that you proposed. And so it's just one more thing to pay very close attention to is the project management aspect of these projects. So those are three areas to take into consideration when you're going after non-SBIR funding that's very different from going after SBIR funding. So now Randy's going to jump into some specific funding opportunities, starting with some of the clearinghouse sites and then drilling into specific agency opportunities.
All right. Many of you, I'm sure, are aware of SAM.gov and grants.gov, and you probably sneer a little bit when you say those terms. But that is where we're going to find a lot of the, we're calling phase 3, post-phase 2, non-SBIR. A lot of these opportunities are going to be identified through these venues. As Bob said, one of the best things you can do is find requests for information, sources sought, industry days, special notices, long-range forecasts, things where you can get yourself positioned early on. Now, it's very true that many of these opportunities are huge. They're spacecraft, or they're an operational control center, or some huge technical services job. But your small business may well find a home with a large business on one of these opportunities. So understanding these things early is really, really important. So we think you need to get in there. Now, how to get in there and actually use these products? Well, If you go to sam.gov, that's generally the place people start. That's where you need to have a registration before you can even use grants.gov. You'll notice there's like 105,000 opportunities there. You're like, oh, wow, really? So what do I do with that? I mean, there are a lot of those. I see that. But, you know, what I've done is shown some filtering that I think can help you. One of the like obvious, or at least eventually to me was obvious, filtering is to filter opportunities where the response date is actually far enough in the future that I could respond to it. So I went in and put October the 7th, as you can see on the slide. I mean, you might put another date in. And I said anything that's going to have a response in the next year. So all of a sudden, 105,000 goes down to 1,264. Well, that's a lot more manageable. But then I want things that are engineering. I'm really looking for engineering, like engineering services or research and development, the types of things that are in the 54 series of the NAICS code. So I put 54 in as one of the NAICS code. And as you can see, I didn't go into the 6-digit, I just went to the 2-digit in order to keep the aperture wide. 152 opportunities. Oh, well, that's really cool. Now, my company, let's say, is into cyber, or you could pick any kind of phrase. I mean, you could put artificial intelligence, the buzzword of the month or year. You could put any of those things in there, and it will then drop those 105,000 down to 2. And those are 2 opportunities that you can then pursue, and something you get your hands around. You can talk to the procuring agency. You can go a lot of times on sam.gov. You can see some of the companies that are interested in it. You can start to build a slide deck to present yourself to them to be a sub. So there's a way to go from the huge sam.gov to something that you can digest. Grants.gov is in the same way. I mean, if I go and just go in and put a word in, it's going to really limit my opportunities because it's just grants. It returns it to 69. Now, I did limit it to grants. I don't want cooperative agreements. I don't want CRADAs. I don't want procurement contracts. I'm just looking for grants. And I got down to 55 opportunities. And then I thought, well, I would like to have the small business advantage. So I limited it to small business, and lo and behold, I'm down to 3 opportunities. So these are 3 opportunities that I, as a small business, can propose on that are due in the future. So these are ways that you can do that. You can even go in grant.gov and look for omnibus BAAs that are forecasted, that are posted, that are grants, that are for small business. I went and isolated DOD and DOE. So those BAAs, a lot of them are broad enough that you can bid lots of different types of technology to them. So let's say you develop something under an SBIR, you've got a number of different technologies on the shelf, as it were. You can go start matching up in these BAAs and go, oh, look, you know, I'm at TRL 3 or 4 or somewhere in this particular technology, and there's a home for it in this BAA, and call the BAA author, talk to them, get an invite for a white paper, typically is the next step, and then get an invite for a proposal. So you can do this. This is an opportunity to use grant.gov.